Well, welcome back to Finishing Well. This is like our new podcast, kind of just an opportunity where we get to come together and kind of share God's faithfulness in our life. And so the first podcast we did last week was an intro, kind of just laying out like, hey, we are not looking to build this. We're not going to have this big website with, a professional intro and a background. We're just going to be personable, real, raw. And I could pick up, there's another word.
To the point.
Yeah, to the point. But really just what can we do to glorify God is really to share our testimony and all of the amazing little miracles he's done in our lives through the years. And there are so many amazing, great, supernatural God stories that he's done for us. So that's what we're going to start. Sammy and Debbie Masholi, we born and raised in South Jersey, and God took us on a journey to Southwest Florida. And so we've been here 4 years. And we are just settling in to be like, what does God want to do with Sammy and Debbie now? And so last week...
He's already did a lot of things.
Oh, yes. But what's the next stage in our life? We're now empty nesters, which is an all new situation for us. And I think we're enjoying it. And it was a very smooth transition. And of course, we love our kids, we see them, but we're enjoying one another and just talking about the Lord and having worship. What's our favorite worship song?
So Holy Forever.
Holy Forever.
CeCe
Winans.
Wow, I fell in love with that song.
Yeah, so
and I could picture like angels singing, us singing in front of the Lord. Yeah. Oh my goodness.
So that's our favorite. We play that over and over and over and over and over again. And so we love to worship to that song. And last week, we kind of started to say we wanted to just really lift up God's holiness and faithfulness in our life. And so we will be very personable, and we don't have notes. We're not going off of notes. We're really just going to just share, like if we invited you over to gather in our gathering room. We have a gathering room now where, we have our small group come and we gather. So it's just like if we were gathering together. Yeah. So we got so many sweet encouragements from so many of you. And it just warmed our heart because, we have so many friends, in New Jersey, in Maryland, in Delaware.
The whole country.
We do. All over the world. Like, we have friends in a lot of places. And it was really sweet to get personal messages. And then, of course, on Facebook. And so, we just pray we're a blessing. We just pray that whatever we share may help or encourage somebody else. But I do want to share, I love this. One of Sammy's friends said, "Great job. Spent my 4 a.m. coffee time with you guys this morning. Love you both." That was so sweet because I won't be getting up at 4 a.m. to spend time with anybody. But I was glad that we could spend time with him at 4 a.m. and it worked out on his timing. So that was just one I wanted to share to say, thank you for the sweet encouragements. So I had said to Sammy, what do you want to start off with? And he said, let's just start from the beginning. And so the beginning is our salvation stories. So I'm going to let Sammy go first. He'll share how he came to know the Lord. Then I'll share how I came to know the Lord. And then I think together we'll share how God brought us together, because we kind of have a little bit of different perspectives on, how it impacted each one of us.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll go up to our wedding, because this is where God started to show us his power and how we were to rely on him
Mm-hmm.
and take everything to him. And when we did, he showed up and showed off. And so we came out of the gate in our relationship with God, trusting him on such a high level. And his resume with us in such a short amount of time was already long. Like he was just moving. And our hearts were so tender and desirous to abide and yield to him and have this relationship with him. We were both so hungry for that. And so when God brought us together, it was like, wow. And he really just took off. So I'll turn it over to you, Sam. You can start to share how God started drawing your heart.
Um, we were talking about this earlier that we don't know who's going to be listening to this podcast. And well, I'm not used to these
Seriously, it's a
podcast
video
things.
diary. Here we
Yeah.
go. It's a video diary.
So I think in the very beginning, God was touching me in certain ways of listening to different churches. And I remember my sister has a house in North Carolina. So we were there one time and, we went to a Baptist church. We were, I was born Catholic. So we went to, this Baptist church and I heard a couple things and I was like, wow, that was really like cool, the different perspective, hearing the service and everything. And it was a different way how they did things. And I was pretty cool. And there was a couple things that really stuck, into my head. Time went on, and but I think that was the first time that God was actually, alerting me about something. And we at my father's house, we had a small gym downstairs. I was living at my mother's house at the time, and I had quite a few guys who would come over, and we would lift downstairs weights. And a buddy of mine across the street that is the head pastor at our church in New Jersey, he came over and he was mentioning that he was going to this other church. Remember, now we're all
But
Catholic.
he wasn't a
No,
pastor
no,
then.
no,
Yeah.
no. He was just going to different churches. Matter of fact, at the time, I think it was his girlfriend that was going to that church, and then he just went. So he came over the one night, and we are all down there, and he goes, "Yo," he says, "I went to this church, and man, just things. I don't know, something's different, and da 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 da." So another night he'd come, we're all lifting, and he would say, "Yeah, I went last week too," and then, and I said, "You know what?" I said, "I better go, just to see maybe what kind of cult he might be getting into or whatever." So I went, and I was like, "Wow, this is like almost what I heard in North Carolina. But this is really good stuff." Long story short, because I'd be here a long time, we started a Bible study, and another friend of mine during the Bible study, he just jumps across the table and he says, "Are you ready to get saved?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess, I don't really what's saved, I don't even know what you're talking about, right?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Do you want to accept the Lord as your Lord and Savior?" I said, "Yeah, yeah." So that night, I prayed that God would come into my heart and just make me a different person, and granted, listen, I was a good guy. If you talk to anybody in our tongue, listen, look at my wife's face, really. But though, if you talk to people in my town, our family had a good reputation. We loved people. We had a great time with everybody. And if you would ask them about our family, we had a very good reputation, and everything was good. Had a good job, living home, everything was fine. It's not like I was at the bottom of the barrel. So, um, accepted Christ. And at the time, friends of mine, we would get a house down the shore every year. And at this point in time, because now the Lord's working on your heart, He's changing you and He's starting to, you know, change your speech, you know, looking at things differently, and all this is going on, and you just want to talk about Jesus, right? Well, a few of my friends were like, "Hey, yo, enough is enough. It's either this new thing that you're on or us, one or the other. Let's get it out there." And it's kind of depressing because you start losing your friends because of now you're on this adventure with Jesus, right? So I'll never forget it. I went to the Shore House early that day, that week, and I was kind of like not happy. All right, can I say ticked off?
Mhm.
Okay, so I was ticked off. All right, in a good Christian way, but I was ticked off. Right, ticked off because nobody really wanted to hang around with me as much as they did before, and I'm like, this ain't good. And if this is that Christianity thing, I'm not digging it. So I get there, and of course I'm there by myself, because everybody else was still working or wherever was still out. And I said, well, I might as well go to the beach, So I grabbed my chair, my oil, Italians have to have their oil with you. So we're walking down. We were a block off the beach. I get there. I set up, and as I'm walking, uh, I'm having a discussion with my Savior. I believe He's the creator of not just the world, but the universe of everything that exists. Right. So as I'm walking, I'm like, and this is what I was doing. I'm pointing. I said, you know what? This is not good. I said, this Christianity thing. I said, and I was very happy being where I was. I don't have any, I'm losing everybody here, and granted, I was talking about you, and things ain't looking up to where it's supposed to be. And, I'm not digging this, if this is what it's all about. So I'm walking, and I'm not too far from the sand now. I'm walking to, and I said, and by the way, here again, I'm pointing at him. By the way, I said, I'm probably the only so called Christian on this beach because you know what? There's probably nobody here because who would want to be this Christian, right? So I walk, usually a spot where we usually go. Okay, put my chair down, put a little bit of oil on. Okay. I'm saying not even 20 seconds go by. A football hits me in the leg. So this little, young kid comes over. Oh, I'm sorry, mister. I said, no. He says, hey, you want to have a catch? I'm there by myself, of course. And I said, yeah. I said, might as well. There's nobody else here. So we started. I got up and I said, what's your name? He says, Matt. I said, how you doing, Matt? We're having, okay, we're having, maybe 12, 13, whatever he was. I was having a catch. Another kid comes over, and I said, "Who's this?" He goes, "That's my brother, Mark." And I said, "Oh," I said, "How you doing, Mark?" Good, good, good. So we're throwing, throwing. Here comes this little tyke. He comes over. I want to play. I want to have a catch. I want to have a catch. And I said, "Well, who's this?" And he said, "Just go back. Go back to mommy. Go back." I said, "Well, who is it?" He said, "That's our other brother." I said, "How many brothers do you have?" He says, "That's." I said, "What's your name?" He goes, "Luke." I said, "Oh." And I sat back, and I'm not a genius in the scriptures, but I'm thinking to myself, I know the first four books that we were always taught, it was Matthew, Mark, and Luke in that order. And I'm like, nah. Here comes mom. Now remember, I'm just pointing to Jesus up there, and I'm thinking, you know what? I'm not digging this Christianity thing, and I'm probably the only Christian on this whole beach. Mom comes over, and mom says, listen, if they're bothering you, just tell them to get. I said, no, no, no. I said, we're having a good time. I said, but I said, I was really impressed uh, with their names. And she said, why is that? I said, well, because they're out of the Bible. She goes, are you a Christian? And I said, I think I said, because of what's going on. I just got saved, right? And, I said, and remember last week, okay, there was a certain verse that I told you, and I'll get to that. And the mom actually started pouring into me. And I told her, I said, well, she goes, what do you mean by I think? I said, well, my friends are leaving, and I'm not really, the popular guy anymore, and it's like, uh, I said, really, I don't know if I really like this thing. She started pouring verses at me, and just like encouraging me and everything else. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And as she was leaving, she rubs her stomach and she says, and we're hoping this is John, you know? And I sat back down in my chair after the kids left. And I said, Lord, I said, here it is. I'm giving you what I think, that he don't have a clue about, right?
Mhm.
And and I said, you brought the whole gospel,
Mm.
all 4 books to me,
Hallelujah.
And the
Hmm.
one verse that I said last week is that, and that's just one verse that, like I said last week, I never even knew it was a verse because you don't know the Bible, that I'll never leave you nor forsake you. And as I sat there, it wasn't an audible voice, Sammy, no, but it was him speaking in my heart. And that's what he said to me that day. He said, Sammy, I'll never leave you nor forsake you. But you're going to have to understand, you're going to be losing a lot of your friends, but I'm going to bring triple, quadruple amount of
Hmm.
people into your life that you have no idea if you could look into the future. So after that, it was a ride and a half because God starts opening your eyes, and that's another thing we could bring up about us going to the bar and everything. Because remember, we
Oh,
just
yeah.
we just got saved, and you're still doing the same things that you've done all your life, and there's things that we actually started seeing because God will open your eyes. Her and I were at the bar. If you want to share that story, when
Yeah. Well, do you want to do our testimonies or I didn't?
well, I'm
Yeah.
talking about God, how God opens our eyes. So if you
Yeah.
want to share that real quick, and then your testimony of what you get saved, or afterwards, we can do. Oh
Yeah.
yeah, do your testimony first,
He's all over the room.
just like I preach.
Well, it's okay. So, we both um, got saved and we were still going to bars. We didn't know much about Christianity. We were all learning. And so I got saved March 11th, 1991. I was going to um, a non-denominational gathering at in the basement of a Catholic church that was Pentecostal. It was, listen, I didn't know anything, but it was like a mirage or a
And
menagerie of so many different things happening at
hold that
once.
thought, and remember what she said. Now that night that I got saved, when that my buddy jumped across the table, I prayed that God would come into my Jesus would come into my heart, but I also prayed for a godly woman. I said, if you're real, and I do believe you're real, bring a godly woman into my life.
So I went through what they called, I guess, these classes, baptism in the spirit. And so each week we'd go to a class and we just listened to people's testimonies of how God was moving in their life. And I've never heard anything like this. I grew up in a Presbyterian church, and by the end of the 6 weeks, we had to write a letter to Jesus, and we put it at the cross. And then there was like 15 of us on stools, and we were sitting in front of like 150 people. And there was 2 people over each one of us while we were praying. And this was like our time, I guess we prayed to, to get saved or whatever. So of course, I pray to the Lord and I'm asking him to forgive me of my sins, and that, asking him to be Lord of my life. And there are people having all different kinds of experiences. So mine was a little different. People were having experiences, and um, time went on and I'm still the only one sitting there. And so one person that was praying over me asked me if I felt like I was ready to speak in tongues. Now, I didn't even know what that was. And I'm like, no. So Now I'm embarrassed. I am the last one sitting on this stool in front of all these people, and people are praying out loud, and I don't know. And I just said to God, like in my mind's eye, like, Lord, I have been so bad. Like, I understand if you're not ready for me yet. Like, I will wait for you. And in that moment, in my mind's eye, like when you close your eyes and you see like the little orange dots, all my orange dots came together in the form of an outline of Jesus reaching his hand out to me. And I gave him my heart. And he took me with his other hand. He took his hand and we walked into the light. And in that moment, I not only felt, but I heard the chains fall off of me. And it was if the pressure of 4 or 5 elephants lifted off. I felt light as a feather. And instantly in my heart, I was overwhelmed with forgiveness. God had forgiven me for everything. And it was so internally moving me to tears. Like, so after that, we immediately left, and I said, you got to take me to a phone booth. We didn't have cell phones back then. And I started making phone calls, and I started telling people, I forgive you. I started asking people for forgiveness. It was so powerful. And that's the beginning of my journey of I have the ability to forgive easily and to move forward because I know what I have been forgiven for. Like, it was so dramatic for me. And so God showed himself so incredibly real to me in that moment. And then I prayed for a godly man to come into my life as well. So that was March 11th, and Sammy got saved on 7 days later. So I was a Monday night. He was a Monday night, March 18th. And then March 21st on a Wednesday night, we had a mutual friend, and we were going to go out to Shooters. And it was where the Flyers,
The bar.
it was a bar, but it was a sports bar. Like,
Right, yeah.
you could overlook watching the Flyers
A lot of TVs,
practice,
yeah, and
and
everything.
had like skeet ball. Like, it was like a fun place to go. Well, he was picking me up, but I was going to meet this guy there that told me he was a Christian. And I'm thinking, oh, this must be the godly guy that, God has for me. So I was going to investigate it. So uh, they come to pick me up, and he gets out of the the car he only had it 2 doors. He didn't have a 4 door. So he had to lift the seat up. I thought he was getting out to get in the back and give me the front. He put me in the back, and I thought, what a jerk, but that's okay. Yeah. Like, oh, I'm such a good guy, right? That's how I was like, yeah, right. You're a good guy. So we're driving there, and, our mutual friend is saying,
Now, at the time, she was working for my cousin. Okay,
well, I
so
had worked. I
yeah.
wasn't
Oh, she
working at
was.
the
Yeah, you weren't
time.
worried,
But
but we knew.
we've known
We,
each other for 6 or 7 years.
yeah,
And we've run into each other a couple different times.
yeah.
And anyway, he starts talking, saying, you guys should talk. You guys are in the Bible now. And I'm thinking to myself, he's in the Bible. And he's thinking she's in the Bible. So we get to the place, and I don't think we talked to him the whole night. We were talking about our experiences, like, how do we come to the Lord? And we kind of weren't really believing one another was saved. And then,
Well, the person we were with, he came up to me and he said, listen, I don't know if you know this, but Debbie's doing the same thing that you're doing. I said, what are you talking about? And he said, well, she reads the Bible too. I said, listen, there's no way she's reading the Bible. There's no way. He says, I'm telling you.
he doesn't even know me.
So I said, Lord, there's no way that you're hooking me up with this one. There's no way. And I said, well,
Surprise.
I said, should I? So I went there. I said, listen, I said, you know, you told me that, you were reading the Bible. All of a sudden, she got real defensive because I guess she thought I was just going to be breaking her chops,
I thought he was going to make fun of me.
And I said, listen, let me tell you something. I said, I'm not
Because
breaking your
he's this good
chops.
Catholic boy,
I'm not breaking your chops. I said, he just told me you were. And then we started talking.
All night long. And then the guy never showed up until like 11:30 at night.
No good.
And
Yeah.
so I was like, I was enjoying 3 or 4 hours of really getting to talk and, share in this newfound faith with somebody. And anyway, I ended up leaving with the other guy.
See?
Only to find out he lied about everything. I was like, take me home. Like, I was so upset. So that was our beginning. But I will tell you, so after he got saved, he shared the little beach story. So my little story after I got saved was one of my friends who's no longer here, he went on to be with the Lord. We would be on the phone talking about the scriptures all the time and what we were reading. And he said to me, you can't take this stuff so seriously. Like I was all in. Like I was like, I am going to be the obedient. I love the Lord.
Yeah.
He's like, you can't take this so seriously. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is what it says. We need to do what we don't need to do. So I went to work the next day. I was managing an Italian restaurant in Cherry Hill. And um, we opened at 11:30. So right about 11:25, two people walk in and I'm like, we're not quite open, but I can get you coffee. And they're like, yeah, we'll just take some coffee. So they sit down, they have coffee, and they go to leave. And when they're paying, the lady says to me, she looks in my eyes and she says, don't let anyone tell you not to take the Lord seriously. Exact words. And you keep doing what you're doing for him. I am like, how does she know that? So they walk out and I go, I got to find out. And I go to run out to go find them. They're not there. Now, I know they could have did this, that, or the other. There's only one way in and one way out. There was no cars in there and there was nobody walking anywhere. I'm telling you. I was like, I was turning over bushes. Like, where did these two people just go? And so being very impressionable when you're in your faith, it's so easy to take something someone says to you and it really could knock you off course. And God wanted me to be exactly who I was pursuing him. And he sent angels. Like, I completely believe they were angels and they came with a message because I could not find them. So that's how our journey kind of started off when we got saved. It was like God just showed up and he's like, I'm going to show myself real to both of you. Unrelated. And he really did.
Yeah.
He really, really did. So that's kind of like the beginning of how we came to Christ and
35 years ago.
Gave our life to him. We have been faithfully running after the Lord ever since. We've never had a hiccup. There's people who talk about backsliding or falling away from the Lord. That's never been our story. Our story is once we were born again, we tasted and saw how good God was, and there was no option life without God. Like, we were all in. We were all in. But real quick, I'll tell you the story about the bar. So we go out,
Yeah.
and this is a couple months after we've gotten saved, and we were at the bar, and then they had like a dance floor. This was what, Cahooli's?
It was, yeah.
Somewhere down Margate for our New Jersey
it might
friends.
have been Gahooly's, yeah.
And he and I are standing together, and I'm standing next to this guy, and we both watch him take his wedding ring off. Now, mind you, we wouldn't even have noticed this before we were saved.
Wouldn't have cared.
We wouldn't even have cared. Like, we wouldn't even have thought of anything because we had no conviction of right or wrong. When we saw him take his ring off,
We were both like,
both of our hearts were like, and we didn't even talk about it. We just, until afterwards.
well, he started talking to this girl first, and then she walked away a little bit, and then before she came over again to talk to him, you see him reaching down like this, and he was wiggling,
Uh-huh.
and we were like,
Mhm.
no way.
Yeah, I did not like that. So they went to go out on the dance floor, and I felt like God took me up to the corner of the room so I could see down what was happening. And I did not like what I saw. It was dark, and people were doing things they weren't supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, we're being a part of that.
Remember now, and when you accept Christ, that's what he's going to do.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to start opening your eyes and
Yeah.
showing you different things of how the world is.
Yeah.
And what you're not supposed to be part of anymore.
So it was conviction. It wasn't, no one told us we couldn't drink. No one told us
Yeah, we were
we
still
couldn't
going
go
to
to
the bar.
bars.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, I was a bar hopper before I became to the Lord. I've danced with robots. Like, where's that? Whole
Yeah, I
Stations
forget what.
had a
Yeah.
robot back then, all the way back then.
Yeah.
I liked to dance, and we liked to party. And so when I tell you, the only explanation for such a turn for me to go loving it to despising it was the power of the Holy Spirit in my life saying, I have something different for you.
Yeah. Both of us.
For both of us.
Yeah.
And we both talked after we left, and we were like, you too? We were like, you saw that too? Because it's so loud in there. And, we're both feeling this at the same time, which was a gift, because sometimes couples may not get that at the same time. So one may still love something that the other one realizes they don't want to do or whatever. God moved in both of our hearts at the same time.
Hmm.
And that was powerful. So when we stepped out of the bar scene and drinking, we never went back. We don't mind dancing or whatever, but we've not drank in 34 and a half years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not because
Nobody. Yeah. We were just so convicted of saying, you know what? We seen what was going on,
mm-hmm,
how alcohol can
yeah,
definitely change your views on
mm-hmm,
things, like this guy taking his ring off. And it was almost like God telling the both of us saying,
mm-hmm,
I don't want you there.
yeah.
I don't want you there. You know?
He just set us apart for ministry. We had no idea. We can look back now and see, but then we had no idea what God's plan was for us. We really didn't. And so he was setting us apart from the very beginning for his work in the church, ministry, setting an example, not telling people, we just say, hey, we don't drink because we want to be sober. We want to be sober minded. And we don't condemn people who do, but we live a life that we believe is honoring and glorifying to God, because we're not going to have a hiccup. We're not going to have one of those, I got mad at him, went to the bar and took my ring off type kind of thing. Like that was hard. That was
and I,
it doesn't sound so drastic, but it was, for
well,
us being so
yeah.
young and seeing that was drastic
And
for
and
us.
I think God was actually showing us that, darkness exists.
That's good.
Darkness, it exists. It doesn't have to be created or invented or
Yes.
anything, okay? Light gets rid
Mm-hmm.
of darkness, but
Yes.
light has to be presented to get rid of the darkness. So, what's bars?
Mm-hmm.
Bars are all dark and
Yeah.
things go on in there, and things that we don't even want to talk about. And it was like God says, listen, you are the light of
Mm-hmm.
me right now, and to eliminate this darkness, you need to get out of here,
Yeah, that's
because
good.
because that will overtake you.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. We were enlightened. God opened our eyes, woke us up to the power of sin and death, light and darkness. And when we were in that darkness, we now had light in us, and the two weren't going together. And that's a really good analogy of that. Yeah. Um, so, well, real quick, we'll stop right about here,
Yeah,
but
because look at the time.
yeah, we'll take you to the step of then we got baptized together, and then we started. He asked me to marry him, and then the story of that.
So we're going to give you a lot of testimonies.
Yeah.
But, her and I were talking beforehand. You know what? We don't know who's going to be viewing these things. If one out there doesn't know Jesus Christ as their personal savior, then this is what we're trying to come across. I mean, like I said, either one of us were at the bottom of the barrel. We had good lives. We were enjoying life. And then Jesus came into our life and he made it better. So um, that's what we want to come across of saying, if you're struggling and, what's going on in the world right now, there's a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are actually searching, of finding out, I want to know what she has, or I want to know what he has. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be showing Christ every time we're walking, talking, or showing people stuff. We are to represent him, and the way he lives in us, we're supposed to demonstrate it out towards people to let them say, man, there's something different about you. So,
yeah, that's our hope.
it's
So
36.
yeah, we're gonna end just for time. We want to keep these short and simple. We don't want to belabor too much.
You.
Yeah. So here's to podcast number 2. And remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And we have to finish well.
Yes.
And so, what is your true north? And what's your bullseye? What are you focusing in on? And don't let a lot of these external and internal obstacles take you off your course, because God is so worth pursuing. He is so worth it. And he is really, what can we give back to God for what he's done for us, but a life well lived for him? And that's what we hope.
Well said.
That's what we hope, that our offering to God is the life that we've lived. It's not always been easy. It's not always been perfect, but we've always come back to our true north.
Love you all.
Okay.
Whoever's listening.
Well, thanks for watching.
If there's anybody listening.
Until next time. Well, no, we're not live.
Oh, yeah.
So.
That's good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we appreciate you guys. Love you all.
Love you.